Hi there, I'm Adrian Atkinson and welcome to this edition of Jamaica Magazine. We have an informative show planned just for you. More on the other side of this break.
Are you interested in buying land or property? Here are the steps you should follow. Step 1. Find out who is legally authorized to sell the property. Step 2. Ensure all property tax payments are up to date. Step 3. Consult an attorney at law who will guide you through the process and protect your interests. You can also use eLand Jamaica to check on matters pertaining to your property purchase. For more information, contact the National Land Agency at 876-750-5263 or 876-946-5263. Email asknla@nla.gov.jm or message us on WhatsApp at 876-418-5089. The National Land Agency. One agency, one goal to serve you better.
Information. Collection of facts, data, or knowledge about something that has been organized or processed to provide context and meaning. The correct information is of the utmost importance. That is why we need our libraries to not just preserve this information, but to also authenticate them. That's the conversation in this week's Get the Facts. Let's join in on the conversation.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the show that gives you information on what you need to know. Starting today, the nation is celebrating Library and Information Week under the theme A Force for Knowledge, Equity and Change, a vital item on the nation's annual calendar as we navigate the information age. Now, as we all know, with the many advances in technology, the way we consume information has changed, and certainly the way we preserve it has evolved too. Joining me to have this discussion is Mrs. Tricia Lawrence Powell, Senior Director of User Services and Conservation at the National Library. Lady Powell, welcome.
I'm most welcome. Thanks for having me.
User Services and Conservation. We're going to have to talk about that, especially that last part. But first, since we're discussing the annual celebration of Library and Information Week, tell me a little bit about that. How did it start? Why do we have it?
It started in October 2016. It was necessary for years, and I mean before men can even fathom the idea that of our mere existence, libraries was around. We had things written on papyrus,
right, and
we would have seen the transfer and the convergence even of the Bible. So libraries play a part. Look at architecture for countries. Libraries are usually right in the middle of the architecture conversation.
That is true.
So libraries continue to evolve and have its place, certainly, in the decision makings. We are the data-driven space, the heart of the country, the heart of the organization, the heart of all that we do in terms of propelling information and transferring it to knowledge. And it was important that we impress upon how it is that we harness information in 2016. As we meet the changing time, we approach the Governor General and the rest is history. Here we are years later, celebrating what ought to have been celebrated years ago.
I love that you have positioned libraries not as a building with shelves and some dusty books or what have you, but as the brain center of a nation.
Yes.
That is very interesting, and we're going to jump to that. Now, this year's theme is Library and Information in Action, a force for knowledge, equity, and change. Knowledge I get. Equity. Change? What's that in the theme? Why are those two in the theme? Equity and change.
So the buzzword right around, you hear people talking about pivoting, agile, being relevant, robust. So you hear that. But what libraries are doing now is to ensure that we promulgate social injustice, or social justice.
Social justice.
Yes. And I say injustice because it is injustice in the sense that a lot of our people don't have access to information. Our students from time to time goes to school and they don't have books.
Right.
And if it is that we don't have the resources available to help those who we consider disenfranchised, the divide is wide. And so the libraries are spaces, safe spaces, and the equity, this is where it comes in. So the same way we have the legal system and persons go to legal aid for assistance because they can't hire that big lawyer.
Right.
It's the same way students who can't afford books go to the library. Yes, just to put it as simple as we can. This is the space that allows equity. I don't have the opportunity to have access to encyclopedias. I don't have the opportunities to have access to tablets or internet resources. The libraries are the spaces that facilitate it. And I want not to just focus on libraries, just to say libraries are an information unit because we cover a wide range of spaces. Right. So we call it glamour. So it's galleries, libraries.
Oh, glamour is an acronym?
Yes, it's an acronym.
Galleries,
so
libraries?
Galleries, libraries, archives, museum, and records units. So we are a glamour group. Yes, indeed. And so the information that we secure and protect in that space or in those spaces allow for the level of equity and inclusion. The change agenda is how it is that libraries evolve to meet the current environment, the current digital transformation spaces that we now enjoy, talking about artificial intelligence, robotics, and so forth, but how it is that we stand the test of time to ensure that the legal and regulatory environments are secure. And one thing I can tell you, when we're talking about authentic, reliable, accurate information.
Right. That's a library.
That's the library and information units for you.
And that brings up a question for me. Now, we're in the age of information being online, these vast deposits of information. A lot of people are getting used to typing a question into their search engine. And this is what, maybe 4 or 5 months old for many of us. And even before you get to a website, the AI summarizes data and they might say, okay, so I have all of this information accessible on my device. Do I really need a library? What would you say to that question?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes because how do you validate? And one of the things that we have pride ourselves with, and I'm talking about, for example, the university libraries. So UWI, which is part of the whole infrastructure for the Jamaica Library and Information Network. They offer information literacy courses. And this is something that we pride ourselves with as library and information professionals, because how it is that we authenticate the relevancy of the information.
Right.
AI can give you anything. I was watching a script yesterday, to be exact, and it showed how within what you copy and paste, there are codes, and within those codes you don't see it. So immediately you're flagged for plagiarism.
Right.
And how it is that libraries encourage you to understand how you rephrase or you paraphrase, and how it is that you give credit to people's intellectual property.
Yeah.
So the libraries are relevant because it puts you in a state of being legally compliant.
Legally compliant. And would you also say in what some have called the post-truth era, right, on social media, it doesn't come with natural validation. Somebody says, hey, this happened. You have to sort of guess. Is this true? Is this not true? Libraries sort of help people get around that stuff in published material. Would you say?
Yes. In published material, you have to go through the editing phase.
Right.
And nobody would want to leave themselves vulnerable. And usually a book that is published is usually authenticated. Of course, I get different opinions, especially if it's a secondary source. And so it is important that even if you get it in a library, and this is going back to equity, we do not separate knowledge. We provide your views and other views in the space. Of course, there are other views that will also complement what we may look as the truth.
Right.
So we have a book by Adrian, or we have an audiovisual content, remember. So libraries are no longer just books.
Right.
So if you come to the National Library, we have pretty much maybe 50 and counting different formats within the library space. And so the truth is going to be residing in those formats, and it is up to you to do the research with the level of care to determine where the truth resides. So you can compare the data and make that analysis for yourself.
I want to hear a bit more about the collections that you guys have down there at National Library. But before we go there, we're going to take a break now. More when we return. Welcome back. I'm here with Mrs. Tricia Lawrence Powell, Senior Director of User Services and Conservation at the National Library. And our conversation surrounds the celebration of Library and Information Week. Now, Lady Powell, before we took the break, we were speaking about the value of the library. Knowledge, equity, what was the other one from the theme? Change, and how important this was in our digital age. You hinted at some of the collections.
Yes.
That are at the National Library, in the library system. Could you tell us some of the significant ones you have there?
The National Library prides itself as being the gem.
The gem.
The gem, the treasure trove of Jamaica's intellectual knowledge.
Right.
So the famous Louise Bennett collection is at the National Library. We recently acquired Sylvia Winter, and I'm going to ask persons to research her. We went all the way to negotiate that collection, and her family was kind enough to donate.
Wow.
We are about to collect one in due time. I can't say right now, but we have to. You know, the strangest thing is that we tend to have to go for these collections outside of Jamaica.
Right.
We have to repatriate them to us. So we got the Leonie Forbes collection, and I'm sticking to this kind of rhythm for audio visual management, because it is one of those areas that persons in film, persons who actually made representation of our great nation beyond our shores. It is important that we celebrate and to keep their memories, and that is what we do wonderfully well at the National Library. And so we encourage persons to continue to donate, and we encourage persons to continue to comply to the Legal Deposit Act.
Got it.
Because the collections are wide and varied. I could go on and on to tell you about the wonderful collections that we have there.
So as you've discussed these collections, and it sounds like you have some top secret collections that you don't want to tell us about, but how do you find that they are regarded both in the local sphere and the international sphere?
Persons will book their flights 2 years, a year, months in advance, coming from South Africa, coming from the UK, Europe, wherever they reside, Harvard University. Professors here and everywhere want to come and touch and taste and celebrate a piece of Jamaica's natural history.
Wow.
So eloquently written. And so the researchers really delve and deep dive into our collections, enjoying the gems. Of course, we would want our local or Jamaican, domestically, our people to really understand what the National Library has and how it is that we can transform their life by them understanding their culture. For them to understand that I'm a little girl who speaks patois, but how it is that I want to write poems and be the next poet laureate of Jamaica, how it is that you understudy Olive Senior, how it is that you know what a Kwame Dawes is doing. And so the National Library's collection is vast, and I'm encouraging today, as we celebrate Library and Information Week, for somebody to stop at the National Library one day this week to connect with what is truly Jamaica's gem, the treasure trove of Jamaica's intellectual space.
In our first segment, you spoke about the equity, and when you were describing equity, you used the example of school children. How is the National Library working with schools to broaden the scope of equity?
The National Library has opened its door year on year to allow tours, children, But of course, we have an age limit in terms of accessing the collection, and that is because of our preservation and conservation mandate. However, we do impress upon our children to come schools to book tours. We also offer CSEC support in terms of SBA preparation for history. So you will find schools all over the island call upon us to provide that information literacy support for history. So we do have quite a vast collection that supports the curriculum for history.
I have to jump in here. Can a student come to the library and say, I have this SBA, and somebody at National Library helps them?
Somebody at the National Library helps them to prepare that SBA, show them how to do the footnote, how to do the endnote, how to do their bibliography, how to do their research to ensure that they don't have plagiarism. So whatever it is that you want in terms of guidance has to prepare those SBAs, the National Library provides support. As it stands, we are supporting the history students more so than the others, but we welcome all the requests.
Love that. We're almost at the end of this interview, but we've mentioned technology. You have mentioned that there is audio-visual content. How do you see technology being used by National Library in the next few years?
Years gone by, we spoke about microfilms, and that is the one that jumps in at this point. Microfilms has really proven itself to be a useful format in terms of preservation. However, as time evolves, as we struggle with climate change issues, microfilms are deteriorating at a faster rate. And so we have to be far more relevant. So they move from acetate films, they go on to polyester films. Of course, the environmental issues are upon us. And how it is that we now recalibrate and revamp to say, hey, we're in a digital space, let's digitize the content. Let's find formats that are durable. And one of the beautiful things about the National Library, our mandate is to ensure that we are relevant to yesterday, and we are relevant to today, and we'll be relevant for tomorrow. So we continue to convert those contents from whatever format it is on now to whatever format it is then, to whatever format it is now, and whatever format it will be in the future. So we continue to chase time so that the content lives on for generations. All
right, so here at the end, this year's theme for Library and Information Week is Library and Information in Action, a force for knowledge, equity, and change. You really already put out that call. Stop in at a library, participate in the activities. So here in the final few seconds of this interview, is there anything on your heart you'd like to share directly with our audience?
Well, directly I want to say to Jamaica, the National Library is backed by a Legal Deposit Act, where all things published in Jamaica, irrespective of format, are to be deposited. And so I'm encouraging persons who are publishers, persons who are content creators, to support us by doing your deposits. And of course, we are encouraging persons to donate. You have items at home, something from your grandparents, you don't know what it is, just take them over to us. Those video cassettes, those, whatever the formats, they may look strange to you, take them to us. We will look to see if they are treasure troves of our nation, and we will ensure that they are secured for generations to come. So make your legal deposit, donate your collections to the National Library, and of course these items, this content will serve its purpose in building our national cultural space.
Fantastic. We have come to the end of the program. Thank you, Lady Powell, for sharing with us this treasure trove about the treasure trove. Thank you for joining us. This has been Get the Facts. I do hope that we've all learned something from this important conversation. And until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Do take care.
Hurricanes can be dangerous, catastrophic events, but we can lessen the damage if we are prepared. Keep up to date with the latest information from reliable sources such as the Meteorological Service and ODPEM. The power will probably go with the internet following, so a good old battery-operated radio is a must-have. Stock up on non-perishable food items and emergency items such as flashlights and extra batteries. Secure important documents Have a pre-packed emergency bag with safety gear such as raincoats and water boots. Ensure windows are protected and roofing is secured. Have updated information on emergency shelters near you in case you need to evacuate during the storm. Preparation will lessen the devastation when dealing with a hurricane. Be prepared.
Do remember that the hurricane season goes up until November 30, and so we must remain watchful, understanding that preparation will go a long way should a hurricane reach our shores. And for one to best prepare, knowledge is key. So in our next feature, we examine what a hurricane is. Watch now to learn more.
The hurricane season in Jamaica begins on June 1st and culminates at the end of November. It means that a powerful storm can occur during this period, so strong that it can cause extensive damage due to high winds, heavy rainfall, and storm surges. That is exactly what a hurricane is capable of. But what exactly is a hurricane? Understanding this can help one prepare for and respond to these powerful storms effectively.
Hurricane is the most extreme stage of a rotating storm that occurs in our region. When I speak about our region, we're talking about the North Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea. And within these areas, sometimes you have clusters of showers and thunderstorms that develop based on many features. And in those areas, all of them being low pressure areas, they cause clouds to rise. And cloud developing and rising leads to more intense thunderstorm activity usually. And when we have that cluster of thunderstorms, it could be the beginning of what could become a hurricane. So for example, you have a cluster of clouds basically that may have showers and usually have some thunderstorm activity in there. But when you have many of them developing or they get so intense, we might refer to an area of disturbed weather that's over the region, and that would continue to move. But with the rotation of the earth and the forces that act on the surface of the earth, it becomes a somewhat rotating system. So these clouds begin rotating around each other. And so you see the movement basically in that general direction because it's anti-clockwise. Now generally as this thing develops, it gets much more intense with lots more clouds around it developing, but then you could also experience a center being clearly defined that doesn't actually have the clouds, but in that center everything moves around the center, and in the center is really a calm area. So we talk about the center of the tropical cyclone or the eye of the hurricane, and that would actually be in the middle, sometimes very clearly defined, sometimes it's covered by some clouds in the upper atmosphere, but really when you get to the surface it is clear. So that's what happens in the center where you have the eye. And then outside of that, these clusters of clouds with the rotation going around anti-clockwise, you also see some bands of clouds that are coming in to the center. So these are clouds coming in, but they generally form in this general pattern where they come in toward the western side of the center, and then they also extend like that from the southern side, southern and eastern side. So we end up with a pattern that looks like this.
So this is the symbol that meteorologists look for on satellite imagery. And once that happens, they say that the hurricane is well defined. Hurricanes are classified into categories based on wind speed, using the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. At its lowest stage, a Category 1 hurricane has sustained wind speeds of at least 74 miles or 119 kilometers per hour. Category 2 sustained wind speeds between 96 and 110 miles per hour. While some devastation may happen in a Category 1 or 2 hurricane, at Category 3 and beyond, wind speed is greater, and so too is the calamity that can occur.
In this case now, you expect some greater devastating effects. So it's more not just extensive damage, but you expect some devastating impact. from this system. You have more trees now being toppled. This is when we refer to it as a major hurricane. Major hurricanes are categories 3, 4, or 5.
Of course, during major hurricanes, large trees may be uprooted, more roofs may get lifted, and power lines are likely to go down, possibly for weeks. It is important to note that wind speed is not the only thing to characterize a hurricane. Heavy rainfall too is expected.
You expect more torrential rainfall usually, especially as you move closer and closer to the center of the system. And you also will experience some storm surge flooding, which occurs really along coastal areas where the wind actually moves the waves of the sea onto the land, and that causes destruction as well. The greatest preparation that we can make for hurricanes is really mental. We have to prepare our minds to recognize that we are in a vulnerable place. Where Jamaica is located is always vulnerable, and so hurricanes can occur at any time during the hurricane season.
There are, of course, physical things that must be put in place to minimize how much you are inconvenienced if a hurricane does occur. These include getting non-perishable food, storing water in case resources become inadequate, and seeing about the exterior of your home, reinforcing windows and walls, and checking for anything that can serve as missiles during heavy winds from the hurricane. You want to do all that you can to achieve a reasonable amount of comfort during and after a hurricane. And of course, if you live in an area where your home construction is insecure, you need to identify and make arrangements with emergency shelters near your home, and continue to monitor local news and weather reports for updates.
One of the things that people tend to rely on is that old rhyme that people talk about, June too soon, October all over. Those two come immediately to mind because they are really myths. So the myth about June being too soon is one of them that we really try to pull people away from, because June is never too soon to prepare for the hurricane season. In fact, the Hurricane Beryl actually began developing in June and moved very close to Jamaica in June. It was on the 1st of July that it started moving into the Caribbean and then impacted us on the 3rd. So June is not too soon for our preparations.
Also, the hurricane season goes until the end of November, and there have been cases where we've had tropical cyclones beyond this period. So it's imperative that we maintain our alertness. Another myth pertains to Hurricane Gilbert, which struck the island in September of 1988. Many Jamaicans are of the view that the hurricane struck Jamaica twice, with many insinuating that it circled the island immediately after it passed. This is so commonly believed that there's even a popular song commemorating the event that echoes those sentiments.
Say for instance, Jamaica is here, and the eye is moving in this general direction, like Gilbert moved from the east to the west. Initially, the winds, because they are moving in this general direction, anti-clockwise, the winds will be coming from the north because they are rotating around the center. But when the center gets to the other side, meaning that the center has already passed and moved to the west, then the winds now, continuing to move anti-clockwise, are coming from the south. So initially they were coming from the north, but then after the eye passes, the winds now come from the south.
So no, Hurricane Gilbert did not hit Jamaica twice, and thankfully so, because we can all agree that a hurricane passing once is enough. No matter the category, hurricanes can have catastrophic effects. It helps when we are prepared.
We've come to the end of today's show. I do hope that you enjoyed this package. To catch a repeat of this or any other, feel free to log on to our website at jis.gov.jm. Until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.